All right, so here we have our radial piston assembly, and our document kind of looks like this. So we're going to click on Access Document, and then go ahead and make a copy of this. And so I've already done that for us and kind of shown us what we're making. But one thing I do want to point out before we get into this is that the check answer on this guy is going to be totally wrong. It wants us to find the Y value for the center of mass, but they don't really give us any specifics for exactly where they want these located. And the problem with that is kind of if we look at, here's my finished document. If I go ahead and I click on the Y center mass, right now it's at 0.39 millimeters. But if I went and I rotated any of these, which we kind of have to do to make it look correct, well, if I rotated one of these, remember it was 0.39. Now it's at 3.74 millimeters. So the check answer really is not going to be reliable on this one. Don't worry about the check answer. Honestly, I haven't even figured out how to get it correct. I think it's just kind of broken for this one. So let's go through. It says copy our workspace, nice and easy. And then within the same workspace, add these following components. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I have gone ahead and I've made my copy. So I'm going to first start off by creating a new assembly. I'm going to rename this assembly since there already is another assembly. And we'll just call this the final radial piston assembly. Right, and then I'm going to hit insert, and I'm going to first click the central mount and just click on it, and I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark and leave this right located with the origin, and right click and fix this one. So that way this doesn't move, everything else is rotating around it. And then I'll go ahead and I'll insert the rest of mine. They said 4 piston sub-assemblies, right? And piston sub-assembly 4, and you'll notice you don't see piston sub-assembly right now, but that's because I'm in Part Studios. I need to go over to Assemblies, and I want to put in 4 of these. So I'm going to just kind of zoom out and just click again, and we have 4 of them. Okay, then it said 1 piston head. That's back on the parts. So 1 piston head. Then they asked for 1 large pin, and then 4 small pins. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and we can move them around wherever we want to. Oops, if you hit the X like I do, I do that from time to time. Luckily, Onshape has a restore feature. Right, now we noticed that we didn't have the rod. Okay, the rod is here, but the rod is just part of that sub-assembly, so we didn't have to do any rods on our own. They've already been assembled together. So now from there, we're just going to make the components so that they're assembled. And so if we kind of look at the instructions and what they're asking us to get this to look like, right, is here are those parts, and we want it to look like this, right? And so it says to treat each of these sub-assemblies as if they're just one component. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And the first one I started off was this piston head. And if we look at that one, this was kind of the trickier one. This is just up here directly on this kind of leg. And it's oriented this way. And so the hard part is the orientation. So I know a lot of students will drag this and they'll kind of try to do it ahead of time, like orient it this way, 90 degrees, and then maybe turn it this way and make it 90 degrees. And if you want to, oops, it's the wrong direction. If you want to do that and try to get it placed ahead of time, you can. I never worry about that. I just use the tools, and I'll kind of show you that. So we're going to go on the Revolute tool. And then on this bottom edge, right, this kind of bottom edge here, right, this circle, this inside circle. And remember, there are 3 spots for this. When I'm in the cylinder, the bottom, the middle, and then this inside. I want to be on this inside part. That inside part would revolute, with the bottom. It should be matched up with the bottom end. Now, when I click on this, that does not look how I wanted it to look. Okay. So the bottom is on the bottom, but it's kind of rotated the wrong way. So I can go ahead and rotate my axis. And you may have to play around with this. Sometimes it's down here, and you rotate it, trying to get it to look right. And then you're like, okay, let me switch directions, and now it's backwards again. You just rotate, just kind of keep playing with those 2 direction buttons until you have it the way that you want it. And we'll go ahead and click the check there. Now I'm still on Revolute, and so actually I can just keep going. So the next one I want would be this large pin goes into the middle here. Right? You can kind of even see those are the large pins in there. So I want to click on the top surface of that. I want the top surface to be lined up with the top of this hole. And there we have it. So we'll click the check. And I can just keep going. I don't have to hit X. I can just keep going because all of these are going to be revolutes. So now I want to get these sub-assemblies, right? Those each went into kind of these 4 holes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and find, the first one. And again, I want to be on this top edge of that circle, or that cylinder. And now this is a little tricky. I want that top edge to actually go on the bottom edge of this guy. So I want to be there on that bottom edge. And now this is faced the wrong direction. So if I just go ahead and flip my axis, now it's in the middle, hit solve, that brings this guy. And we'll go ahead and click the check mark. Now for some reason, this, when I solved it, this guy rotated, right? And this guy can just keep rotating. But if we want to make it easier on ourselves, what we can actually do is we can come back over here to the piston subassembly and double click this revolute. This is for the top guy, and we're just going to make this guy fastened for right now, just so it's not always flipping as we do it. It's just going to make it easier. It's just something I've kind of learned from experience. If you don't do this, you'll still get the right answer. You just kind of have to rotate them afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go to my revolute, pick that, bottom edge there, go to this next guy, kind of right click and rotate so I'm below. Click there. Again, I need to change that direction. And hit solve, press the check mark. And so this time we'll notice that this head, right, this piston head did not flip backwards. And I can drag it. You're just kind of dragging it to make it look how it looks in the picture. So just kind of dragging it, whatever. All right, next up, I'm going to do another revolute. And I'll be on this top edge. Now, I've been clicking each time I've been clicking that top edge. And, oh, you know what? I had something highlighted by mistake. All right, so let's start that over. So revolute. So I'm going to click this top edge. And each time I've been clicking on the top, and it's been going the wrong way. So I'm going to actually try on this one to click right here on this inside surface. And that is the correct way. So I'll hit the check mark. And again, I can drag those later. And then my final one, I want that top surface. And I'll stick with that, inside of the bottom one. So that's the very bottom. I don't want to be on the very bottom. I want to be on the top edge, right? There are those 3 dots. I want to make sure I'm on the top. Okay, and I'll go ahead and click the check mark. So I'm going to hit X out of this. I'm going to go back to my isometric view. And they're all kind of pointed this way. And I'm just going to drag them. I want that guy over here. Probably want this guy over here. Right, and we're just trying to make it look like the picture. And the instructions just say to make it look like how the picture looks. Okay. So, you could go in here, right, if I hit play on these, right, that'll show me like the direction of the spin. And, this is allowing it to spin 360 degrees. Maybe they would have some limits on here, like, we can only go between, let's say, negative 50 degrees and positive 50 degrees or something like that. Just so you could kind of see what this looks like. And so then, it'd only be spinning within this direction. That doesn't look right. And so you would kind of want to see, if you're dragging this, you might want to see what the degrees are and just kind of play with it so that maybe you can just have it bouncing back and forth here. But that would be more advanced. They didn't ask us to do anything with limits, so we're not going to. All right, so next up, now we have our sub-assemblies here. Now we just have to add these pins. So I'm going to go back to my, not fasten to my revolute, and click on the top surface and just go one by one. Top surface, hit the check mark. Then I can go to the next one. As long as I'm hitting the check mark, I can just do them back to back. So top surface, hit the check mark. Make sure I'm on revolute, not on fasten, not on planar. Hit the check mark. And then top surface, and hit the check mark. And so this is what it should look like. Like I said, we cannot really do the check the center of mass. So if yours is looking like this, you can play around with it, drag it, and it works perfectly. Now what I want us to do though is go back to this piston subassembly. Remember, we changed this from revolute to fasten just to make it look nicer. Let's change it back to revolute. So that now you can see that as you click and drag these guys, the head does kind of rotate as well. And that's the desired motion. So make sure yours is doing that you changed it back to Revolute in the piston subassembly. Okay, so now our instructions next ask us to make an exploded view. So it says create a new exploded view of the parts and make it look like what we have in C. So I'm going to go back over here, and exploded view is this bottom option over here. And a lot of times it's taking up like most of the screen, so I like to just kind of drag it to the right, click add exploded view, and now we're going to just step by step pull everything up. So I started off with this piston head, and I just kind of dragged it out. And you can just drag it anything. I like to kind of make mine consistent, so I'm going to just go 100 millimeters for all of them. 100 millimeters. Then I'm going to drag this rod, go up, and we'll go 100 millimeters. Now this next one's a little tricky, is if I drag this guy, it's only going to be dragging the part of my subassembly, right? So I don't want to just drag this guy. I'm going to actually hit X on there. When I click on this one, it's going to tell me which one of these sub-assemblies it was part of. So this is my fourth sub-assembly. I'm going to click on this button over here, and now all of it gets highlighted. And so I want to take that entire component out by 100. Right, same thing for the next one. I'll just click on this. That's my third sub-assembly. And I click it here in the browser so that now it's all highlighted and it will all move together. Go out by 100. Now this next one, again, don't drag yet. Click in the browser, the whole subassembly 2, and let's go out by 100. Zoom out a little bit. And then finally click on this guy, that's subassembly 1, and we'll come out by 100. Okay, now I'm not finished. I still have these 4 wheels, and I'll show you guys a shortcut. So I can actually click on, there's pins, not wheels. Pin, and I can click on all 4 of them in the browser because I want them all to go up together. So if I click on all 4 of them and go up, they'll all come up together, and we'll go by 100. And that looks pretty similar to what our example looked like, right? I may have gone a little bit further than they did, but honestly, I feel like that's pretty darn close. So there is that. We're gonna go ahead and click done. And then to turn this in, since we can't really do a check answer, what I want you guys to do is take a screenshot of this, but then also click share, and then share it with me. So type my email in here, click share. All right, and then that's that for the piston subassembly.